President Tinubu's inaugural speech that suggested fuel subsidy is gone triggered pump price hike from 195 naira to 550 naira, over 200% increase with attendant price increase in transport fares, food items, and other basic necessities. Now, in other words, removing the fuel subsidy is synonymous with increases of prices of petroleum products. This, in turn, could lead to inflation and reduced purchasing power for consumers. It could also have a ripple effect across the economy. For instance, when subsidy was removed from kerosene and diesel, the prices went up and never came down. Additionally, removing the subsidy could lead to social unrest and protest, as many people may perceive the government as insensitive to their needs. There is also a risk that the removal of the subsidy could lead to a rise in fuel smuggling and other illegal activities. We have with us in the studio Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals, and joining us via Zoom is Dr. Bello Ngawa, a development economist. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you so very much.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Dr. Bello Ngawa. This, subsidy, we all know that, yes, it is time that, it needs to go. But the people are not ready for it, and the people are seeing it as though the government are not really, being sensitive towards them, considering that we all know that whenever a new policy comes, at the end of the day, the poor people, the masses are the one who suffers the more. What's your take on that, Dr. Bello?
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning. It's really very true that whenever issue of subsidy removal arises, the implication is that there will be an immediate jack-up of petroleum product prices and leading to inflationary pressures within the economy. However, this has been a lingering issue for decades. And we know the impact of the subsidy regime itself. So far, over the years, we have evidence, everybody knows, that actually the effectiveness, the actual positive impact expected from the subsidy has not been achieved effectively. And as at today, government neither has the money to continue subsidizing, nor can it borrow continuously to subsidize. But meanwhile, there are actually not just beyond the direct cost of subsidization, there are high indirect costs also that are not easily perceptible. For instance, all the issue of corruption around the subsidy regime is an indirect cost that is even heavier than the direct cost to the economy and to the general socio-economic culture that operates within the economic system. Besides, another indirect cost that one can think of is within the bracket of the subsidy regime, for instance, of petroleum, of PMS. Many people, the manpower and investable funds have been diverted into that regime that take advantage of the arbitrage between the prices that operate, especially across West Africa and within the subsidized rate in Nigeria. And people have been diverting their own efforts, workforce and manpower and investable funds at the expense of productive sectors of the economy. And if we divert our manpower and our investments into speculative, non-value-adding activities of translocation and trading across borders, informally through smuggling of petroleum products, because we have a subsidy regime that we can ill afford to sustain, how much are we losing in terms of productivity, in terms of productive culture and incentive regime that has been created as a culture in this country over the decades? So there are many costs, actually. Now, the truth is that truly whenever you lift of subsidy, there are going to be immediate short-term inflationary pressures. But the gain will be in the long term, medium to long term. While over the years, because of the subsidy regime, the benefit has been short term, but the pain comes in the long run. In the long run, that is to say, now to
Okay, we actually seem to have a connection issue with Doctor, but we will get back to him. Now let's come back to our studio guest, Mr. Paul. Now, taking a look at the implications of the subsidy removal on the Nigerian citizens. Now, how do you think this government, or what do you think this government can actually do to cushion the effect, or, you know, efficiently manage the gains of the subsidy removal to benefit the Nigerian citizens?
Thank you so very much for inviting me, and a beautiful morning to you. First of all, before we get to the point where we have policy that is affecting people's disposable income, we have the opinion that refineries should have been working. At least there will be gain on freight. But that's not the situation. Government have announced subsidy removal. NNPC has since published new figures, which is, I think for Abuja is 537 naira per litre. That's over 200%, if you like, of what was obtainable. It caused for a lot of worries for many Nigerians. So how will government cushion the effect? I hear that before President Buhari left office, he has secured $800 million that government want to share to household, and maybe for 5,000 or 10,000 as the case may be, for about 10 million household for some time, hoping that that will cushion the effect. In my opinion, I don't think it will. I don't think it will cushion any effect, because one, that program has been existing before now, and 87 million poor people were living in multidimensional poverty is what President Buhari met. When he was leaving, that has increased to 133 million people. So the question is, has that really impacted on reduction of poverty? Now, we must differentiate between economics of theory and applied economics. We have often heard that in the long run, things will be fine. As a Keynesian economist, I'll tell you that in the long run, we are all dead. Tell any economics, any economy that has ever mentioned to you that when is the long run, they will start stammering. There's no long run anywhere. So any plan you have and you are not sure as to when the impact will be is pure economic theory. So ask anybody, professor, doctors, anybody, when is that long run? The challenge is in the long run, the truth rather is in the long run, we are all dead. I understand the place of classical economists that say forces of demand and supply drive decay price. But what they did not understand is that there is effectiveness of demand. We call it effective demand. The effective demand talks about the ability of demand to buy, that is, the ability to purchase. 30,000 naira is the minimum wage, average of 1,000 a month for minimum wage. Unfortunately, many of our people are not even earning up to minimum wage. Many states are not paying up to minimum wage. What is their capacity to buy in the current reality? So the truth is, government wants to remove the burden of subsidy, and I completely agree with that. Over 6 trillion naira on annual basis. It does not make sense. But the question is, what brought us here in the first instance? The challenge is, as we speak, the root cause, what led to subsidy and a humongous amount, has not been solved. We were not known to subsidy until the refineries collapsed. Are the refineries functioning now, as we speak?
Okay, well, talking about the refineries, now you mentioned that before the subsidy should be removed, the government should have at least gotten one refinery working. And we're seeing Dangote refinery on the pipeline, which some people actually think, seem to think that it might not even kick off operations in July, as as stated. And we have Kyari saying that Nigeria, the president would actually fix one of the refineries before the end of year as well.
Well, I heard about Dangote refinery in 2012 when President Jonathan said he was going to remove subsidy. He actually tried and announced subsidy removal, but was reversed after a number of months when Labour continued to occupy several streets of Nigeria. We were told that Dangote refinery will come in 2013. We saw 14. We saw 15, we saw 16, and 2023, we saw commission. I believe when they commission something, start working, at least when you commission a borehole that many politicians do in Nigeria, they hold the tap. but we commission the refinery, we are not seeing fuel. So, but you see, I'm also a producer. So, but we have seen Dangote refinery being commissioned, and we have been told July. So let's say August, it should start coming. What Dangote refinery will do at the least is that it will save us freight. But you see, there's a danger in that. The danger there is that you cannot have a single refinery and the fate of over 200 million people is on it. We have 4 refineries. Dangote refinery is super, is big, and it must be encouraged. Because Nigeria is saving us a lot of effects. I can give you 20 arguments in support of Dangote refinery. But there's an argument we must also save, which is important, to be balanced. What is the argument? That it will lead to monopoly. We must allow those 4 refineries, the way government have shares in Dangote refinery, give them to private sector persons. Let them run it. They know if they don't produce, they will not make profit. The goal of private sector is to make profit. NNPCL is not a limited liability company whose interest is to make profit. NNPC is not government agency. It's a limited liability company with the goal to make profit. That's why they set their price. So Nigeria should not use the old mentality of NNPC they know to operate in the reality of the new NNPC. NNPC set a price where it can make profit and declare profit for the federation. That is the owner. So here's what I'm saying. As good as subsidy removal is good, there are questions we must ask. Diesel removal of subsidy. Can somebody show the impact on the economy? Kerosene subsidy has been removed. I don't know if you can tell what the impact is. Because people said in the long run, it has been long enough since diesel was removed. What is the impact? Kerosene has been removed, the subsidy has been removed for long. What is the impact? What is the tendency that when you remove the petrol subsidy, the impact will come? You know, an African adage says, you know how people will react when you die by pretending that you are dead, meanwhile you are just sleeping. So the posture they take. So we have used diesel and kerosene to know, you know, what the impact will be. So the real issue about subsidies, can Nigerians trust our government, the government?
Okay, so
over subsidy removal. So we have said it's important to remove subsidy. Okay, Nigerians may say it's fine. Let's give it a try because there are some painful decisions we must make. Subsidy is one of them. I was just of the opinion that before that subsidy is removed, government could have created some intervention for people, but not by giving them cash. One of the things government could have done is to say people who are not paying taxes in Nigeria today are people earning less than 30,000 naira. We may move that up to say if you are earning below 50,000 naira, you'll be tax-free. What does that mean? Poor people, that's their income bracket. So whether you work for government or you work for private sector, we would say you will not pay that much. So you can use what you should have paid as taxes to government to do what? To buy PMS.
Mr.
So
Paul,
that's it. And there are about other ways government could do.
You know, there's a lot of things, of course, to talk about. And we'll come back to that. But I want to throw this question to Dr. Bello. You know, Mr. Paul raised the notion of saying the refineries are something that we need to get revived first before they should have implemented this subsidy removal. But people already are angry, are saying that if you say that it's just the Dangote that's going to happen, of course there will be a monopoly in markets. And let's not forget, Dangote is a businessman. He's not indebted to Nigerians or Africans to say, okay, I'm just going to do this for Nigeria. I don't think the government really have a huge say in how he runs his thing. And we can say that we will have only one refinery. So even with the news of Melekia is saying that there will be a removal of there will be a revival of one refinery. There was a bit of denial from his camp, saying that no, that is not going to happen. So what is it? Is it that the president is not making any plan of reviving the refineries in the country? And why is it? Why can't the money that is being removed from the subsidy being pumped into just make these things to be revived? That way it would help the people. Okay, I think we lost Dr. Bello Ngawa there. We're sure that he will be able to try to join us again. So, Mr. Paul, let me send that question back to you.
What makes sense is that 6.6 trillion naira that should have gone into subsidy, or the remaining money, we should see it directly in fixing those refineries. And I would not want government to own the refineries. Government held on to these refineries from the 70s or 80s. If somebody is giving birth to, for instance, in 1973, by now, that person is 50 years old. We mean government has held on to refineries that is over 50 years. And there has been no performance. Imagine a man who has a life for 50 years, no education, no improvement, no development. Give it out to people who will run business with it, but there will be competition. Imagine when telco came, it's only one network we had. Remember when we had one network, the first thing they told you is that there is no way we cannot do per second, it's only per minute. Until other network came and said per second is possible. So don't be deceived. When you have one refinery work, I am happy it's Nigerian refinery, I am happy it's going to reduce unemployment, I am happy it's going to save off FX, but that does not also mean that we should be ripped off. What would that mean? There must be room for competition. And to make this competition happen, we don't need to start from the scratch and start building. And people have said, there are a lot of people, I've heard all manner of interesting arguments, for God's sake. And I started doubting whether I'm actually an economist, because some of the arguments people say are very funny. Oh, a lot of people have licenses for modular refineries. If you don't remove subsidy, they will not function. And I'm saying, no, most of the people with modular refineries have financial issues. You don't run modular refinery with 10 million naira or 100 million naira. That you call it modular refinery does not make it cheap. Refinery anywhere in the world is expensive. You need to provide the environment, but the people that we buy must also have ability to purchase. Do not very quickly compare Nigeria with countries like Saudi Arabia, because minimum wage in Saudi Arabia is not 30,000. Do not compare Nigeria with the UAE. If you live in UAE and citizen of UAE, once you are 18, you're automatically a millionaire. Not because you do business, but because of the environment, because of the country. If you live in Nigeria, what you automatically become, not my figures, the National Bureau of Statistics, 133 million people, do not live just in poverty, but in multidimensional poverty. This is why we have to be very sensitive. As much as we want to make what makes economic sense, remove subsidy, what subsidy removal means, carry your weight, carry your load, what you can use. But do we have the economy to support that? And that is why I also think that in removing subsidy, which has been my recommendation, it should not be done abruptly. It should have been done in phases. 25% maybe for the first 6 months, another 25%. And so people are prepared over time for this subsidy removal. Within a year, you know, one refinery, and whether it was promised by the GMDC, UNNPC or not, the second refinery would have been on stream. You are also sending signal of faith to those who have modular refinery licenses. You are sending signal of faith in case you want to build the 4 refineries we have as a country. For those people who might want to operate or participate in the operation or start production, that the future is bright. Nigerians will get used to it. We've done this with power supply. The cost of per unit consumption in electricity has increased over time. Government did not just put it up. Yes, people will grumble, people will have concerns, but people have been told that over time the price will go up. And you see that going up steadily. So people can plan their finances, they can plan their income. The good news is that government said it was going to increase minimum wage for workers, or going to increase worker salary, not minimum wage, by 40%. Is private sector able to do the same? State government are suffering to even pay 30,000 minimum wage. Could we? So, and here is the issue. Government has the tough decisions to make. Do we go to the deep blue sea or do we kiss the devil? Tough decision. State government are battling with low resources. They are also battling with paying minimum wage. So people will say, you want to increase subsidy, then you have to pay us more. But ask yourself, between private sector and public sector, who is the biggest employer of labor? Is private sector. Private. So private sector must buy in increasing salary. But here is it. Once you increase salary, there's another economic problem. Because economy is about trade-off. You cannot eat your cake and have it. But properly speaking, you cannot have your cake and eat it. Once you increase salary and subsidy has increased, then there is another problem you face. It's called spiral inflation. You know what it means? This is June. By September, be ready to buy rice. If you are buying for 35, 36, 37 now, be ready to buy 46, 47, 48. You ask, what has petrol to do with rice? And if you are buying corn for 100 naira, be ready to pay 150 or 170 or 200 for corn. You ask, what has petrol to do with corn? A lot. Because the guy that goes to the bush, anywhere, maybe Kogi State, and brings out the corn, roasted it by the roadside, is not using petrol, is not using anything. But you know what? He lives in an economy where price of petrol has gone up.
Okay,
so it's going to have tremendous impact on everything.
Okay, so talking about, you know, the if there should be increase in minimum wage and increase in salaries, it would affect inflation. Won't, you know, the government body creating a body of, say, price control would help in, you know, not making inflation, you know, affect the economy? That is, if that is
why can't government create price control for PMS? Why didn't they create for diesel? Why did they want to create for? It's like government coming and say what advert rate should be on your show. Is this when you know the whole Nigeria will tune in between 9 and 10? So government now say this is the control. Will government pay the rest? So price control never worked. I saw sometimes ago when President Buhari was in office, they were going to some places to run price control. It never worked because the economy is distorted. See, abroad where they sell for equivalent of 500, 600, 700, people go and check all those countries. There is ability to pay. Ability, especially if it's an oil producing country. So it is good for us to buy fuel at 600, 700. But please, the economy, not by law of minimum wage, the economy naturally should be buoyant for people to pay. And that will be evident when we export more. That will be evident when borrowing rate is low. That will be evident when quality of naira, and this is where I rest my case. Quality of naira. Because subsidy will not have been the issue. You see, people can easily blame President Tinubu. Oh, he came out, he announced, he did this. I hope he'll be able to see it through, and that is my sincere prayer for him. But where is the real issue? Monetary and fiscal concern. I've been in your studio a number of times, and I've never left your studio without mentioning non-convergence. I'll use this opportunity to say it again. In 2015, when President Buhari came to office, minimum wage, exchange rate official window was 199, say 200. Parallel market was 250. Central bank today is about 460, 461. More than double. Check the price of pump fuel. It has also been increased by what? More than double. Did you see the relationship? The real thing we are paying for is poor exchange rates. If exchange rate were to be back as to what it was in 2015, there will be no subsidy. The price will remain 195 or 200. I don't know if you follow me.
So now the work is for the CBN there. Okay, so let's talk to Dr. Bello Ngawa. Dr. Bello, the people are angry at the government at this point. So what do you expect the people to do? Because, of course, we are seeing the people are seeing the government as being insensitive, and that's a fact because they're tired. And the lack of, you know, they don't have the money. Everyone is trying to, with the panic buying, people are rushing to the money that they're supposed to use to buy food supply. They're using it to go buy a lot of petrol that they don't really need at the moment because they're even thinking that the price might increase in the long run. So what should the people do?
Well, unfortunately, there is no easy answer to this because actually Nigerian economy has come into a cul-de-sac. Just as Paul was explaining the linkage between the tripartite relationship between the fiscal, monetary, and other policy issues that for over decades that have distorted the entire configuration of and the architecture of the economy against production and value creation and therefore prosperity. Now it's like the chicken coming home to roost this time because you can see we cannot even continue borrowing to continue with the palliative and subsidy in all facets. You see, this subsidy regime has been a culture, an economic culture for Nigeria for over many decades. Fuel subsidy, dollar subsidy, education subsidy. In fact, even employment has been subsidized because so many jobs have been created where there is no work. there is really a time that has come now that we begin to have to look at things in reality. The reality is that the system cannot afford to continue subsidization for all various reasons that I have had to enumerate and many, many other more. Be that as it may, the choice of government should have been on two approaches. Either to do it gradually and face and do the expedient and do the necessary, but gradually considering the socio-political pain and negative impact that it will have, not because that is all about economics, or you do it as they have translated now as a bullet treatment, that's a shock treatment. The problem with the gradualist approach has been over the years, administrations and regimes have come to attempt to do that. And the long lingering issue of the subsidization, and that we have been addicted to having subsidized livelihood, there's a capture, system capture of the true beneficiaries of the existing order. So gradualist approach have generally proven to be ineffective, and they have been compromised and undermined by beneficiaries of the very order that we want to change. So it seems like government took only the other option of the shock treatment.
Okay.
So be that as it may, the tokenistic palliatives may be the only way out now. But when it comes to providing palliatives, again, that is another problem, because palliatives is nothing but another regime of subsidization. So it will still be abused by corruption, by distortion, and by inefficiencies and ineffectiveness that the system has delivered itself into. So these are it has to be done so as to show the empathy that the public may expect from their leaders. Not because it is of economic expediency, but because it has socio-political expediency.
All right, Dr. Bello. Now, we've actually seen, the government, representatives of the government, and a meeting between the representatives of the government and the NLC, deadlocked, even saying that, there's going to be another meeting on Sunday. And despite that, the government has come out to say that, there will be no reversal of, fuel subsidy removal, no matter what happens. But there's still, going to be a meeting between them and representatives of the NLC. So do you think, after that meeting, that the government will decide to shift grounds?
Sincerely, I do not expect so, for so many reasons, because when you do some policy somersaults, it has its own implications also. And in any case, really, everybody recognizes the fact that I need down the line somehow, giving some provisions that the subsidy has to go. Do that as the government has to bend over and create windows that will pacify the public, so that the public begins to calm itself down and begin to objectively look at the issues around the entire economic architecture that needs to be just technically touched and designed effectively, systematically. Now, that means that we bring back some of the only options that one can think about for now is some of the palliative options that are being cited. But even at that, government has to be careful, and this time around to really do it effectively and well targeted, and to demonstrate to the public that it has empathy and it has understanding of the feelings, and then continue, engaging the public into sensitization and education and understanding of the issues around our political economic quagmire that we have found ourselves over the past 2 or so decades.
Okay.
Because this thing has been coming. The only thing, at what time will it reach the zenith where some tough decisions have to be taken? And I think this is where it has come. I mean, if you want to even continue with the subsidy.
All right, Dr. Bello, thank you so much. Due to time constraint, of course, we can continue this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bello Ngawa, a development economist, and also thank you, Mr. Paul Alaje, senior economist, SPM professionals, for joining us today.